Right. Just let us know when we're live, like you would normally at a planning one then, Lewis.
Yeah, and we're live.
Off you, Caroline.
Okay, right. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd just like to welcome members, officers, and members of the public to the Joint Staff Consultative Committee. Before the meeting starts, as you know, the Chair and Vice Chair have both sent their apologies today. Therefore, we need to elect a chair for this meeting. Could I please have a nomination for the chair for this meeting and a seconder?
I'm happy to propose Tom Plater.
I am happy to second that.
Lovely. That's great. Thank you.
Just need to have a vote.
No.
Voting.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So
And thank you,
now,
councillors.
yeah, I announce that Tom Plater is the chair for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to this Joint Staff Consultative Committee being conducted virtually with members, officers and representatives at various locations. Before the meeting starts, I would like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to explain how proceedings will work and confirm that members and officers are in attendance. So I'll hand back over to Caroline.
Thank you. Just can I confirm the following members and officers are in attendance and can hear us and we can hear them? So Councillor Tom Plater. Yeah.
Yep.
Councillor Claire Strong.
I am present.
Yeah. Councillor Terry Hone.
Yes, present and correct.
Rebecca Webb.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Ian Cooper.
Good morning. Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning. Keith Fitzpatrick Matthews.
Yes, I am here.
Thank you. And Lewis Franklin.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And are there any other members or officers in attendance?
Just me.
Just you. Thank you, Chanel. Members may request to speak using the raised hand function, and the same function will be used to vote. The chair will notify you when it is your turn to speak. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? So I now hand over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. So item 1 is apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Christina Core, Debbie Eland and Dee Levitt. Are there any other apologies?
Councillor Dennis has apologised.
Yeah, and also should Councillor Raj Bakar be on that as well?
We haven't had an apology from.
Sorry, yeah, fine.
Sorry.
Who's
No,
absent?
that's fine. Are there any other apologies then? No, in which case we'll proceed to item 2, which is the minutes from the 6th of December. And I'd like to propose that we take as read and approve as true record the minutes of the committee held on the 6th of December 2023. Can I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hone. So we'll now move to a vote. So can I get consensus from the members to approve those minutes, please? Yep, perfect. Thank you very much.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't at the meeting.
No problem. Thank you, Claire. So that has been approved by member consensus. Item number 3 is the chair's announcements. This meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recordings will be available on ModGov or the North Herts Council YouTube page. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the chair's announcements on the agenda. Item 4 is the staff consultation forum minutes, and I'll hand over to Ian Cooper to present.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to do a very brief introduction to these today. A lot of them are HR related, so will be picked up under the next item. The committee will note that under both the December and January meeting minutes, there were 3 restructures detailed in there. They've now progressed and they've been taken forward. There's also various IT updates in there, covering things like a new CRM system, which is now in place, and the training that we put in place for that to make sure staff are aware of that. And also informing staff around the fact we had an incident where we lost power to DCO temporarily, and I'm sure everybody aware about that and the impact that's on the public and how we've looked to resolve that since that happened. But I'm going to stop there and invite any questions, as they have quite a broad range of subjects we covered across those 2 meetings.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Ian. Can I get, are there any questions for Ian on those minutes? No? Okay, if not, thank you very much, Ian, for your presentation. We now need to note the minutes of the Staff Consultative Forum for December 2023 and January 2024. So can I get a consensus from members to note those, please?
Yeah, duly noted.
Yeah, noted.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We will now move on then to item 5, which is the information note on the HR update, and that's Rebecca Webb to present.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'll go through and highlight some key points from the paper, starting with 3.2. The same message that I usually give around there being lots of recruitment activity. This time round, there's been some that's resulted in internal secondments, which has provided really good opportunities for current employees to develop their new skills and experience. We continue to see unfilled vacancies, and they're listed out for you in the paper. Some of these include some of our hard to fill roles, so legal and IT. The other unfilled vacancies have either now been re-advertised or we've adjusted our approach by developing skills internally or recruiting trainees to develop into those roles. Moving to 3.4, we've now launched our staff survey. We are encouraging all of our staff to tell us what they think is working well and what we could do better. The survey covers a variety of subjects, and we've already had a really good response. And we'll be looking at those results after the survey closes in April. 3.5 covers the national pay bargaining for 2024. And since the paper was published, we have received a Green Book pay claim from the unions. There's a few things covered in there, but the headline around the pay is a claim for an increase of at least £3,000 or 10%, whichever is greater, on all spinal column points. So the negotiations will now begin, and regional pay briefings have been arranged, which we will be attending later this week. 3.6 gives an update on our apprenticeship scheme. We currently have 8 apprentices in post, and again, we've seen great success with another apprentice securing a permanent role at the council. We also marked National Apprenticeship Week with some articles about our current apprentices on social media. Moving to 3.9, this is an update of the activities of our inclusion group who met in January to talk about over 55s in the workplace and how we can ensure that we continue to support this group. There were some really interesting discussions about how employees can use flexi time to support their own well-being, and suggestions on how we can all keep our general IT skills up to date. And we're in contact now with the IT team to look at setting up some IT champions to support this. And the work continues on the awareness raising and training around microaggressions and unconscious bias. And then finally, absence. I mentioned last time we would expect to see an increase in minor ailments in autumn and winter months. Short-term absence in January hasn't quite reached the same levels as October and November, but it is higher than it was this time last year. Just to give some context to that, there is a reported increase nationally in sickness absence, and a 2023 CIPD Health and Wellbeing report showed that there was an increase from an average of 5.8 days per employee per year to 7.8 days per employee per year. So that's what we're working within. We'll continue to monitor and provide support and advice on managing absence. And then I'll cover the long-term absence management in the discussion paper in a moment. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions on that report?
Yes, it's Claire. Sorry, I can't find my raised hand button. It's
No problem.
disappeared. You mentioned about the staff survey. Obviously, it's haven't had one of those for a while. And you said you've got a good response. Well, what's your definition of a good response so far?
So it doesn't close until the end of the month. and we've had 130 responses so far. So we expect to get more, and we'll continue to chase. I think it would be unreasonable to expect everybody to respond, but we are doing our best. And officers in the room will tell you that it's all I'm talking about at the moment. So yeah, it's a good response so far.
So it's 130 out of what's the total staff at the moment?
380.
380. And are you surveying sort of any of the contractors or those that are on, short-term, long-term contracts, or is it just full staff members?
Anybody that's on a contract with us. So all staff. They might be temporary, they might be permanent, but all staff.
I just obviously that for me that might, depending on what the responses are, that you might see that might skew or not the results when you can start to look at them. But provided you know and can sort of when you're doing the analysis of the results, I mean, I assume the results are going to be anonymous or whatever the word is you use when you send them back in.
Yes, they are. Yes, but only those.
I was going to say, will you be able to distinguish those that are full-time, part-time, or contractors?
We haven't asked that question. We are only asking for their directorate, but only those with a North Herts email address will be able to respond.
Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you, Councillor Strong. Are there any other questions for Rebecca on this item? If not, I have one quick one, and that is on the vacancies and on the 5 posts that haven't been filled. Do we know how long they haven't been filled for? Are these vacancies that came up in this quarter, or are these vacancies that still haven't been filled on a longer term?
I don't have that information to hand. I can certainly get that for you to paint that bigger picture.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask one quick one? Because
yeah, of course.
Again, looking at the absence reasons, and the time that some of those, for the longer periods that members of staff are off, and I know it's going to be addressed later, but when you say which one is the one which I didn't understand exactly what we're on about here, musculoskeletal, is that broken bones or other bits and pieces that?
Yeah, it might be broken bones, it might be bad backs, it's that kind of thing.
Because I mean, again, bad backs is something that can be work related, because again, it's kind of important that everybody does those health and safety surveys to make sure that their chair where they're sitting and doesn't cause them anything aggravated. Obviously can't do anything if somebody strains or breaks an ankle on a football pitch when they're off work. But is it, I mean, if those are related to injuries, again, well-being of staff is always something that we have to be looking after.
Yeah, absolutely. We wouldn't rely on just the absence reason. So our HR team would be in contact with the manager to look at what the reason is behind the absence reason given, because of the way the payroll system's set up. We do need general reasons like this to cover absence, but actually we dig into that detail and then we provide support and guidance based on exactly what's happening with that individual in those circumstances.
I mean, a broken foot, you can still do some sort of work. Broken wrist is a little bit more difficult. Back injuries, back problems if you've got a sedentary job, obviously makes it a lot difficult. But again, it's just knowing how the support and management to those staff that is being given to try and encourage work or partial work if that's an option.
Yeah, and I'll cover it later in the discussion paper, but dependent on the circumstances, we might look at a phased return, we might look at modified duties. All of those conversations happen with the employee and the line manager, but it's all very much dependent on that individual circumstances.
Great. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you very much, Councillor Strong. Are there any other questions for Rebecca? If not, thank you very much all, and we will move on to item 6, which is a discussion paper on face-to-face versus online learning, striking a balance. And I'll hand back over to Rebecca to present.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just run through the key points in the paper. So the pandemic has changed the way that we approach learning and development. Pre-2020, we did have some online workshops and e-learning available, but when we hit the pandemic in 2020, everything went online, including apprenticeship training. Fast forward to 2024, and we are still using the online formats to support learning and development, but now these sit alongside the traditional workshops and courses, which can take place face-to-face. An example of something that's worked well, we set up a virtual new starter get together in 2020, which allowed those new starters to informally meet each other and some other key team members. And this was initially completely virtual, and now it alternates between being online or face-to-face, which gives the staff options around which one they would prefer to go to. Training providers have developed how they deliver courses, and they really make use now of the technology on offer, including online polls, breakout rooms, word clouds, so that even when you're online, that interaction is still encouraged and can take place. In summary, there are benefits to both methods, and there really is no one size fits all. We've all got different learning styles, different preferences, different working patterns. So offering a variety is really key, and that ensures that we're being inclusive and makes learning and development accessible to all employees.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I'll open the floor now to questions, comments. If anybody has anything they'd like to say about this?
Just a comment, really. I mean, yes, I can see different training, different types, and depending on the nature of the subject that you are giving over. But at the end of every training, and again, I'm assuming that you review the feedback forms that those that have been trained on will have given, which always helps trainers improve what they're delivering, but might also give an indication of whether or not something would have been done better face-to-face rather than online.
Yes, absolutely. So after every training course, there's one of the questionnaires asking for feedback, and those are reviewed after each training course. Again, maybe at the beginning, there was a clear message that people didn't want everything to be online, but now we have more of a variety. It's not a clear message to push things down a certain route, which is why that variety is really important. But absolutely, if there was clear feedback that something would work better in person or would work better online or a different format, then we would take that into account.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Strong. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess really at the end of the day, it's whether or not online or in person is as effective in terms of each other. What gives the best really in terms of training? And I think it's probably a balance between the two. But I think in this day and age, certainly most things are online. When we can get online, of course, after today, we got there in the end, Louise, didn't we? So pleased with that. But I think in this day and age, more and more, it's going to be that way. And also those people we said earlier who perhaps are not as 100% fit as others can do it, whereas perhaps, of course, there's some jobs which you can't, some vocations which you can't do online. Yeah, you can do some of it, but not all of it online. So it needs to be practical, as you know. Local authorities do have some practicalities which they have to do, so some of it doesn't work. But no, no problems with a mixture and picking the right one to do it with. I think, for example, this is a classic case here, yeah, where we can do it online and we can talk, we can see the papers, etc., etc. Whereas tonight, perhaps different ball game when we're at a different meeting, fire meeting tonight, when we have to be there in person. I think same as full council, cabinet, this sort of thing. Where you have to be there in person. So we don't have any choice on that. But when it comes to training, please, yeah, whatever meets the needs in terms of making sure that our people, our employees, our staff know what to do and how to do it, and that's the key to it. Thanks.
No, thank you, Councillor Hone. And from my perspective, I agree with both Councillor Strong and Councillor Hone. I think there is a real mix needed, and that's a good thing, especially as we have the technology to be able to do it. I guess my only question and reservation about it is what we've found when training on more difficult subjects, and maybe some of the staff want to weigh in on this as well, whether people have found that better to do online or face to face. I know there was in the discussion paper there was a note about the pros and cons of training on difficult subjects in both mediums, but I wondered whether we'd found that people preferred one way or the other, and how that has influenced the training that we do on the more difficult subjects.
Again, we've had different feedback. So if I take safeguarding as an example, there's very clear feedback from some people that they like to be in the room for that kind of subject. And we've had feedback from other people for exactly the same training that they like to be online so that they can easily switch off their camera and move away if they need to for that break. I think it being in the rooms can still cover that off as long as the trainer is very clear that you can exit at any point, take a break at any point, and you have that kind of flexibility. But yes, there isn't, with regard to feedback, there isn't one clear format that will work for everyone.
No, and I do understand that societal pressures can make that more difficult being in person. I think we've all experienced that, even at council meetings now with the change to the constitution. I think there are still times where I've felt self-conscious going to the toilet when I've needed to in the middle of a council meeting, and I know that's certainly less difficult than some of the topics that we're covering. I guess my last question on this would then be: do we run hybrid or blended trainings? Because we've got the technology in the council chamber and in other areas to be able to do so. And is that something that's done on a regular basis?
We do that with meetings. We don't do that as much with training. That's the one thing that hasn't worked quite so well, having some people in person and some online. If there were a request for that, then we would absolutely consider that, especially if it were one of those difficult subjects. And yeah, the team are open to those kind of requests and adjusting things based on how people are feeling.
Great, thank you very much.
Good question.
Are there any other questions or comments on this discussion paper?
Thank you.
If not, thank you very much all. I believe that we need to note the discussion paper. So can I ask for members to approve the discussion paper, please?
Happy to note.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Councillor Strong.
Happy to support.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Hone. So that is approved by member consensus. We'll now, thank you very much all for the discussion. We'll now move on to item number 7, which is the discussion paper on long-term absence management. And I'll hand back over to Rebecca to present.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so we define long-term absence as sickness absence lasting more than 21 days. And our policy is in place to ensure that employees on long-term sickness absence receive the appropriate support from their line manager and from HR. Our sick pay scheme supports employees whilst they're off sick and whilst they take that time that they need to recover. We look to support employees to return to work, and as part of this, we look at options such as reasonable adjustments, redeployment, and occasionally ill health retirement. In 2023, there were 49 cases of long-term sickness absence, which resulted in a loss of over 1,000 working days. 40% of these cases related to mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and stress. So there's a piece in the paper that talks about the process whilst employees are off sick, and one of the first things that happens is a letter from HR at that 21-day mark, talking about the requirements around the fit notes, reminding the employee of the employee assistance programme, and talking about keeping in touch whilst they're off sick. And the other thing we would look to do is refer to occupational health. So this is to get advice from a trained medical professional about the employee's health in relation to their job, and any adjustments that might be required, including that phased return to work. Throughout the process, the HR team provide guidance and support to the line manager, and can provide support and external signposting to employees. When we reach the point of returning to work, we would always discuss any OH, any occupational health advice with the employee and line manager. So that might be those reasonable adjustments or a phased return, modified duties. And then we would set regular reviews to make sure that line manager is assessing the progress and addressing any concerns during that return to work period. Occasionally, we do have situations where an employee is unable to return to work in the foreseeable future. And in those circumstances, we would explore options around ill health retirement through occupational health, and of course with the employee. Looking forward, we can see that a significant proportion of our long-term sickness absence relates to mental health problems. So we are looking at introducing wellness action plans. And these are a framework that helps an employee identify what keeps them well at work, what causes them to be unwell, and how to address a mental health problem if it occurs. It really supports that dialogue with the employee's line manager to help them better understand the employee's needs. So essentially, it's a proactive measure to managing mental health and promotes well-being. We are testing these at the moment with some managers and staff and within the HR team. So we'll be getting feedback on how they work in practice.
Great. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Do we have any comments or questions on the paper from anybody in the room? Yeah, Councillor Hone.
Thank you. Yeah, Rebecca, thank you for this. How are those statistics or those sheets you put in front of us there, which say what the standard when people go on to occupational health, etc., how do they compare with other authorities? Is this a standard that's used throughout local government, or is this unique for North Herts?
You mean the 21-day mark?
Well, no, particularly when it says eligibility for occupational sick pay, yeah?
Ah, yes. So, yeah, so yes, that's standard. That's part of the Green Book entitlement. Not every local authority signs up to that, and some will have moved away from that entitlement, but that's what we apply.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hone. Are there any other comments or questions?
It's perhaps just a comment. You talked about the 2023 figures and the 49 cases of long-term absence. That's, again, in comparison, that seems quite a high number.
Yes, I think some of this is to do with luck. When we look at our workforce profile, we have an aging workforce, and it can be that comes with more health issues that need to be managed. I haven't done a comparison to other authorities and where they're at with this, but that would be fairly standard for the last few years for us. I think the difference, just to add to that, the difference that we are seeing over the last few years is the increase in cases around mental health.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, and thank you very much, Councillor Strong. I have a few questions. The first is that the occupational sick pay, that kicks in on day one of an employee going off sick, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect, thank you. In terms of occupational health, do we have somebody in-house who does our occupational health, or do we outsource, or are we part of a shared service for it? How does the referral go about working?
No, it's external, so we don't have an in-house occupational health advisor. So we have a contract with a supplier that we then refer to. Generally, an employee would see an occupational health advisor, but where we have a more detailed case, or if we might be looking at ill health retirement, they would go to a physician. They can request a GP, so an employee's GP can write a report that is then sent to the OH advisor, and we get a report from them telling us, making suggestions around what we should be doing to support the employee.
Fab. And then just to finish, could you talk a bit more about wellness action plans and what they entail, and the kind of impact you foresee them having on the organisation were we to adopt them?
Yes, so I think at the moment things are getting better, and I mean generally, not just at North Herts, around people talking about their mental health more often, and I think it's a really positive thing that that's out there. What we haven't got at the moment is any kind of framework to support managers and staff to have that conversation. And when a conversation isn't happening very often, it can be more difficult. So this provides that framework. Conscious that not everybody will want to use it, and it's not something that we would kind of mandate across the organisation, but dependent on the feedback, I think that it could be a really good tool, but not for necessarily those people who are off sick or have been off sick with mental health issues, more about everybody being able to proactively manage their mental health. With regard to the impact, I think we need to see how these tests run, and the feedback we get from the managers, to be able to talk more about what impact that might have moving forward.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any other comments or questions on the discussion paper? If not, thank you very much all. Members, can I ask for us to note the discussion paper, please?
Duly noted.
Noted.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members. In which case, we'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is future discussion topics. We have, sorry, the papers have just disappeared off my tablet, but at the end of the agenda, there are some future discussion topics. So I'd like to open a conversation on what we think we should be looking at over the next couple of meetings.
I suppose we could look at success or otherwise of certain things, can't we? Yeah. We've got a few things in there which we're going through the processes in terms of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So as long as we get regular feedback on how those are progressing, that's always helpful.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Councillor Hone. I certainly agree with that. Have we got the list of discussion topics that we've previously discussed and ones for the future, Rebecca?
Yes, that should be included in the pack.
Can't find it.
No, I couldn't find it either.
I'm going through the pack and can't find. Perhaps I'm missing somewhere.
No, I'm the same as well. I think it's been missed off the end of the pack. So what I would like to suggest is that perhaps we take this item offline. Shannon or Catherine, if you're happy to circulate round the discussion topics to the members of this committee, and we can over the next couple of weeks have a discussion by correspondence and suggest some topics to move forward at the next joint staff consultative committee.
Well,
Would members be happy with that as a compromise?
I mean, I've been slightly canny. I went into the previous meetings where the document is. You can.
That's why I went into the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, fine. Let's do. Well, let's do that then.
Where you can actually see.
Yeah, we got face-to-face versus online learning from Elizabeth. I raised the point, stated that there were a lot of interesting topics, including diversity practices, social media for recruitment, and online learning. Well, online learning. Raj commented on long-term absence management was a good topic. Elizabeth stated that online learning item would be particularly helpful. Yeah. So resources requested that macroaggression and unconscious bias should be added to the suggested discussion topics. Well, that's service director suggested that, so that might be a good thing. The chair confirmed the topic face-to-face versus online, striking a balance, ounces. So yeah, I'd number 83 from the minutes. I think that's what you're looking at there, Claire.
Well, actually, I went back to the last meeting and the list was in there, but I think it was just repeated.
Well, I'm looking at the minutes of that, meeting, which is up above. So rather than jump around. So there were some things on there. So I think we carry those. We've certainly picked up on some of the face-to-face versus online learning, haven't we? Yeah. So
yeah.
But there's some things on there around long-term absence management, around diversity practices, social media for recruitment, online learning again. But we went through all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Claire Councillor Strong makes a very good point there, and I've done exactly the same thing as Councillor has, and gone back to the agenda of the last meeting, which has got the list on. Looking through the list, I think there's a subject area on the employee guidance on use of social media. I think might be quite a good discussion for the next meeting. And then there is also one on 2020's diversity and changing workplace practices. It's good, but happy to have other suggestions.
I think we still, as an authority, are struggling from recruitment and retention. Because again, we've heard again today about difficult to recruit. And I know we've done, we have done a lot of changes, have gone into how we're recruiting, and again, maybe how we're using social media to recruit, how we're encouraging employees to refer a friend and things like that. And also bonuses to encourage staff to come and join us. But we still seem to have gaps and holes in the organisation. So I don't know whether or not, again, it's just an update on where we are, because if we haven't got the right staff in place, we can't deliver the services that we want to. We can't move projects forwards as a council that we would like to. So we are very, very incumbent on getting good staff, right staff, to support the organisation. I mean, I'd also like to hear what maybe some of the employees on the call think our priorities should be as well, and what we're looking at. Oh, Ian's jumped in. I love it when Ian's going to jump in.
We'll go to Ian Cooper first.
Rebecca was first. We want to go to her first.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. It's all right. You've come up first on my screen. Rebecca.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to run through a few of the suggested topics for future meetings. I can see the paper, so I thought that might be helpful. So managing short-term absence was something on the suggested list. Flexible working, coaching and mentoring, social media for recruitment, succession planning and development, microaggressions and unconscious bias in the workplace, and neurodiversity in the workplace. Take on Claire's point about the recruitment update, and we could have that as a discussion paper, but I could also include that in the information note.
And also staff survey results.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. I mean, for what it's worth, I think it would probably be worth having a discussion paper on recruitment and maybe looking at some of the where other councils have been successful in recruiting staff as well, and what they've done compared to what we're doing, and maybe how we can change and adapt in order to make that better.
Well, Tom, was always one twist on this, of course. Nowadays, that working from home seems to be the preference, and so going into the office is not something which is high on the agenda for many people. And of course, other authorities, because they are perhaps closer to London, offer higher salaries. And we know this from things, for example, the fire and rescue service. So therefore people can, they can be working for Lambeth Borough Council and getting a London waiting, but live in Hitchin, because where they work rather than where they and they want to pay commuting costs. So they're going to get a higher salary, and they're doing exactly the same thing sitting in Hitchin as for Lambeth as they could do for North Herts. So that's one of the struggles, and we understand that, Rebecca. That's one of the things that anybody living where we are, being where we are, is going to. It's worse down when you go down to Hartsmere and places like this, where it's next door. But certainly, it's something which we have not a problem with, but certainly have to take account of.
No, absolutely, and it means I think it means for us as an organisation we have to be canny in what we can do, because as Terry rightly says, we're not able to compete within a London councils on a pay front. So right, my Zoom's just there we go, it's just showing the screen, sorry about that. It's definitely incumbent on us to look at how we can be canny in other ways other than pay. And I think that's if we can get a discussion paper on that, that's certainly what that should be focusing on. I know Ian's had his hand up for a while, so I'm going to go to Ian Cooper next.
Yeah, I think that same point you all just made actually is that we can do a discussion paper on it, but it will acknowledge the limitations of pay in that, but we have been trying lots of different little things to try and make ourselves more attractive on the recruitment front. And obviously we do our best absolutely to retain staff and make North Herts a great place to work. I was also going to point out that we've had comments from considering the council delivery plan and resourcing risk in there from both Overview and Scrutiny and Finance Audit and Risk Committee about resourcing risk and issues. So I think we did that here, sort of tie it all together across all the committees who are interested in that kind of topic.
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Ian. Louis.
Yeah, I thought I'd just give a perspective as an employee that's not a manager. So from my point of view, I stay with the council, one, because I enjoy my job, but two, because of all the little benefits that add up. So for me, the flexible working here outweighs any pay increase I could get going somewhere else. And I think that's something we've looked at broadcasting more over the last year, especially discussing it in inclusion group. But I think it's definitely something we should broadcast more, because I used to work in a job where I worked loads of hours, had no flexibility before, and it pretty much changed my mental well-being dramatically. And so for me, the flexible working, all the little things that we do here, the inclusion group, the SCF, all those things for me really make this a good place to work. And I wouldn't go elsewhere because of that, even if I could find better pay somewhere else, because the pay isn't worth the benefits I get at the moment. So I just thought that was something I'd add.
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Louis. And it's great to get your perspective on this topic as well. So moving forward, we've I think in consultation with the other members on the call, we've agreed a discussion paper on recruitment and retention, focusing on initiatives around that for the next meeting. Do we want to agree another discussion topic as well for the next meeting, or are we happy to leave it with just the recruitment and retention item?
I'm content with that.
I think if we can all, because I think we'll see the staff survey results, so the committee might want to spend a bit more time looking at those.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Strong. I think that's very wise. In that case, I believe that is the end of the meeting. Thank you very much all for attending today, and thank you to anybody who is watching on YouTube. The time is now 5 minutes past 11, and I'd like to call. That's all.
Yeah. Thank